The year is 2030. You and your spouse have recently found out that you are unable to have children, and this is something that you've been looking forward to since you got married 5 years ago. So you're having to consider the other options. And the first thing that comes to mind is adoption. However, when you start looking into the expenses, you're asking yourself, will I be able to afford this? This is a question that no American should have to ask themselves. With more than 400,000 children in America alone, in the foster care system, there should be no reason for adoption ranging from $15,000 to $60,000. So the question is, why? Why is adoption so expensive in the United States? And with that being said, my topic today is, should we have to pay to adopt children in the United States? And this may very well be a situation that you find yourself in 5 to 10 years from now. There's already so much stress that comes along with raising a family, and wouldn't it be great if we can eliminate some of the financial stress that comes with adoption? I'm qualified to discuss this subject because I am a woman living in the United States who one day hopes to have a family of her own. And I have also conducted research necessary to speak on this topic. There are 3 main points that I will discuss in the body of my speech. First, I will introduce the problem with high expenses associated with adopting a child. My second point will discuss the reasoning behind these high expenses. And finally, my third point will introduce some solutions to help resolve the high expenses that derive from adoption in the United States. So let's begin with the problem of my topic area. My first main point is the problem with high expenses associating with adopting a child in the United States. In 2015, Julia Gum, author of Can You Adopt Without Debt?, goes into detail with the various expenses one should expect when seeking to adopt a child. To begin, the adoption application fees can range anywhere from $250 to $750. The home study fees can range anywhere from $2,500 to $4,500. Agency and program fees can vary from $10,000 to $30,000, and birth mother expenses can be anywhere from $5,000 to $25,000 depending on the mother's situation. And these are only half of the costs that one has to consider when seeking to adopt a child. There are 3 different types of arrangements that come when it comes to adopting a child. One can seek foster care, domestic adoption, or international adoption. And some additional expenses that international adoption requires that the others do not are in-country adoption expenses, which range from $2,500 to $12,000 or more. And on top of that, you have to pay for the travel expenses, which can vary from $5,000 to $15,000 depending on where the child is located. The reason for these high expenses results in the popularity of adoption being targeted towards newborns or infants under the age of 1. According to a 2005 article by Mary E. Hansen and Bradley A. Hansen titled The Economics of Adoption of Children from Foster Care, this confirms that the path to adoption is a long process for the children who are in foster care. Mary and Bradley confirmed that most families who are seeking adoption are interested in private adoptions and international adoptions. They do not consider foster care as an adoption due to the older age of the child. With that being said, the mean age of waiting children in foster care in 1999 was 7.9 years, and the mean age in 2001 grew to 8.4 years, and this age rate is steadily growing today in America. And now that you are familiar with the problem that results in high expenses of adoption, I will move on to my next area of discussion. My second main point looks into the reasons behind why it is so expensive to adopt a child in the United States. The main reason for these high expenses is because younger children and infants are what most parents are seeking when looking to adopt. International adoption is also more popular due to the influx of infants being born in other countries as opposed to the infants being born in America. The popularity of international adoption did not occur until after World War II, and in 1986, 10,019 foreign adoptions took place in the calendar year, where more than 60% of those children were under the 1-year age mark. And in 1993, an article written by Kathy S. Stolle appeared in The Future of Children, brings to our attention that 1 million children in the United States live with adoptive parents, and 2 to 4% of American families have an adopted child. 92% of all adoptions involve an adoptive mother and a child of the same race, leaving only 8% of adoptions being children and parents of opposite or different races. Another reason adoption is so expensive is because parents are seeking to adopt. They do not consider the foster care adoption as a form of adoption. According to a 2018 journal titled Factors Associated with Adoption and Adoption Intentions of Non-Parental Caregivers, written by Matthew Bramlett and Laura Rodel, states that more than 100,000 children are officially waiting to be adopted each year, but less than 60,000 of these children are adopted annually. And of those adoptions, 23% are made of relatives by the child. Now that you are familiar with some of the reasons why adoption is so expensive, I will give some solutions to help lower these expenses. My third and final point focuses on some solutions to help resolve the high cost of adoption in the United States. And one solution to that is to look into adoption assistant programs. A 2001 article in the Scholars Journal by Sheldon Smith and Glade II introduced an adoption assistant program known as Notice 97, 1997-2, Internal Revenue Bulletin 35, and Publication 986. And these are also known as tax benefits for adoption. Beginning in 2002, the law allows for an employee to exclude from incomes up to $10,000 of adoption expenses that have been reimbursed by the employer. Prior to 2002, the amount offered was only $5,000. And in order to receive these benefits, the employees must provide reasonable proof that the reimbursements are qualified for adoption expenses. And some examples of what the money can go towards is adoption agency fees, court cost, and travel cost. Another solution to help resolve the high cost of adoption would be to make foster care adoptions more appealing to the public, as well as shortening the lengthy durations that foster care adoptions tend to take. In a 2004 article titled Foster Care in the United States, written by Jennifer E. Makehomer, Cynthia Scarcella, Erica H. Zalewski, and Rob Green, stated that foster care adoption process is more complex and afflicted by many potential barriers, where some of which are easier to address than others. The 1997 Adoption and Safe Families Act made significant changes to the child welfare policy by setting timelines and practice guidelines for achieving permanent outcomes of children. There are 5 stages of adoption. We have entry, permanency planning, termination of parental rights, adoptive placement, and post-adoption. These 5 steps alone can take anywhere from 6 months to 3 years, which of course is the reason that many U.S. parents seek international adoptions, domestic, private adoptions, as opposed to foster care adoptions due to the lengthy duration of time. Some challenges in reducing the number of children in foster care revolves around the issues of delayed court hearings, inadequate supports for kinship care and legal guardians, insufficient services to ensure permanency for children, and of course the multiple moves that the child makes while in foster care can impact that as well. So in conclusion, today I discussed the topic of adoption in the United States. There were 3 main points that I focused on in the body of my speech. First, I provided the problem with adoption in the United States, which is the high expenses associated with adopting a child. My second point gave reasons why it is so expensive to adopt children in the United States. And finally, my third point of discussion looked at a few ways to help resolve the high expenses of adoption. So let's go back to my opening statement. The year is 2030 and you and your spouse found out that you are unable to have children. What's your next step? How do you make the process more affordable and less stressful? The answer to the question is considering all of your options. Will you proceed with foster care, international, or domestic adoptions? Does the company that you and your spouse work for offer any adoption assistant programs? There are many ways for you to adopt a child without having to worry about the expenses. You just have to be open to exploring all of your options. Thank you.